Here I want to take you through how to navigate spatial analysis in architectural design. And in order for you to do that, you need to understand that architectural design encompasses a couple of aspects, ranging from considering functionality, considering efficiency, and considering the aesthetics of the building. So what do you consider first when you are doing the spatial analysis of your space? The first to consider is the user needs. You have a residential building that you want to design, for instance, and you are confused. The first thing to do is to develop your brief in line with the user. And who is your user? The user is the person you have in mind that you intend to design for. So it means that you need to actually understand that user thoroughly. You need to understand the needs and the preferences of your user, and the user could be the occupant. Most especially the occupant is actually your user, not just the financier. Somebody might finance a building, and all you need to know is that what category of persons are you designing for? Are you designing for a student? Are you designing for a copper? Are you designing for somebody who is coming from a transit guest who is coming from a different town to come in there? So it's important for you to understand this. But for a residential, which is an owner occupier, maybe the owner wants to design to live, you need to assess the lifestyle of that user. And if you are doing that, you will have to understand the person's, rather identify the person's routines. How does he wake up? What does he do first? That will enable you align your considerations. So if you assess the routines, the next thing is to understand the family size and the activities within the family. This will also help you determine spatial priorities, because if you have a residential building where the user is a musician, it means that you will actually need to create a studio where the person practices. If it's an academic, you may like to provide a study where the person reads, as well as a family. If it's an accountant, you still need to provide a den or a place for study. So it's very important for you to understand the lifestyle of the person. Okay, if I'm to break this down deeply, taking an individual, I think we'll spend a lot of time here, but I'm going to take time to do this so that you understand. Take note. Number one is you understand your user needs. Your user need is broken into categories of assessing the lifestyle of the person, also considering the movement within the space and accessibility. Remember, there are different classes of persons, and your design can enable or disable someone. So when you're doing your spatial analysis, you should be of a position to be able to allow your user to be enabled. Okay, there is nothing like a disabled person. If somebody is physically challenged, it means that your design can enable the person or disable the person. If you are coming into this video and you've not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do that right away and like this video. Thanks for coming up. Second, under user needs is accessibility. When you are considering accessibility, you need to ensure that you understand that everybody can navigate through the spaces effectively. Whether the person is on a wheelchair, or the person requires clutches, or is an old person or a toddler, any kind of person, you should consider them in the design, meaning that you should design, your design should be inclusive to allow those with disabilities to be enabled. This also takes me to the point that even as disregarded or regarded as a space, like what do you call it, convenience. If you are designing a convenience for a young or an old person who has mobility issues, you must consider grab rails. So that will also influence your spatial analysis. So are you saying that the anchor is the user? Okay, now the third aspect of this is your privacy consideration when you are talking about your user. The privacy requires that you zone, or rather, let me not say zone, you separate areas that are public areas from the areas that are private areas. Typical example for residential, I know in my previous video I talked about having activity areas where we talked about the living area, we talked about the sleeping area and the working area. These areas also are further classified into privacy zones, where you have the public, semi-public and the private zone. If you are designing a residential building, would you want your visitor to come into your master bedroom? Definitely not. So it means that that bedroom is not a public zone, it is a private zone. Even within the family, the bedroom still becomes a private zone, because it's not every occupant of the house that is allowed to a particular bedroom. For instance, the master bedroom is for maybe the owner or the head of the family who is occupying the space, and you will not expect the guest who comes into the building or the facility to have direct access to the master bedroom. And yet, good morning. All right, I move down to the next one, which is very important, and it's called functional zoning. When you are zoning your spaces, you should have it in mind that the essence of it is to organize spaces within the building envelope, to be able to achieve specific functions. As I said, when you are designing, you need to be able to zone public facilities or public spaces to the public zone, private spaces to the private zone, and social spaces, even the services area, to where it belongs. This ties directly to your activity. You zone based on activity. So if you have done your activity area and know that you have the living, the working and the sleeping, that is also an informer, or that's going to inform you on how you zone it. Because if you have the sleeping area, you know that that's a bit of private zone. But remember that we have private zone that is more private, and we have the one that is semi-private. For instance, your guest room may not be located at the very private zone, because when your guest comes in to the building, you may not want to take the guest deeply into every other part of the building, but it's going to be within the same zone. So if you are making a sketch or you are doing your bubble, it's going to still come within the bubble of the sleeping area. Do you get the message now? All right, so you can break it down into private zone. This consists of areas where people can rest, where you have personal activities. Let me break this down clearly. When you say where you can rest, it is clear that is your sleeping area. But where you do personal activities, there is a space in a building called a personal space, And that personal space, I want to surprise you that there is a particular space in your house. Immediately you get in there, ideas begin to overflow. That is the space where you find yourself in the form that you came. That's your bathroom, that's your restroom, you know. So if you get into the bathroom or your shower room and you are showering, that's a personal space. You wouldn't want to design such a space and somebody who is in the living room is looking at the person showering. Is it possible? Not at all, not at all. It doesn't work like that. And you know, being a personal space, because you have been confined or secluded, even if it's an open plan building that you are doing, a personal space has to be made private. It must be private enough. You understand the point? So if you have questions, go ahead and drop your comment here. If you are following what I'm saying, go ahead and drop the comment for those who are live streaming. If you are coming to watch this video later and you are understanding what I'm saying, or you have queries, go ahead and drop your comments so that I can attend to that. I proceed. We also have spaces like the social and public, or rather zones like the social and public zone. What do you have in your social and public zone? You have spaces for interaction, and typical of that is your living room, your dining room. Check it out. When you are in the living room, even in the ante room, when you are in such spaces, you find that you are interacting. Either you are talking to family members, you are talking to guests, you are watching the television, or you are waiting for someone, or you are eating. That's if you are in the dining. And if you are eating, though you know that you don't talk while you are eating, but it's actually a social space. You are there with other persons. You get the point. So that is a social, or you can call that a public zone. Then we have another zone, which is your service zone. Service zone. That ties to your working area. Remember, we talked about working area before. So the service zone here is actually a functional area like the kitchen, the laundry. In fact, the garages, for those who want to enclose their garage space. Okay, great. I'm glad you are learning. Welcome to this channel. Then we proceed to the third consideration when you are doing your spatial analysis. Remember, the first one was your user need, the second was the functional zoning, and the third is your site context and orientation. In any climate or any climate you find yourself, buildings don't just exist, but they exist within an environment, and that environment is where the site is situated. And this site is situated in a climatic condition, in a topography, in an environment where other things are happening. So when you are looking at site context and orientation, the first thing that you should consider is lighting and ventilation. How do you consider this? It means that you need to, you're welcome, you need to take note that, hold a second, great, you need to bear in mind that you do not provide a space and in the daytime that space does not have lighting. That means you are designing a prison. In fact, even in the prison, they seal an opening for somebody to see daylight, because daylight and nighttime, they don't cease to exist. So you cannot just deprive somebody and put somebody in the cocoon. So sunlight is the first of its kind. And how do you provide daylight into the house? If you do not position your building in the right orientation, or in the right if you don't position your space in the right orientation within the site, you will find it difficult to attract sunlight when it's supposed to be. Let me give you a typical example. You should not have your bedroom facing the setting sun, which is your west end. Because if you do that, your bedroom will be hot at the time you are retiring. But if your bedroom is facing the sunrise, it means that when day breaks, sun will rise into that room area, and you arise and you move out. You get the point? And you should also know that your dining and your kitchen requires such lighting, because when you are preparing breakfast and the daylight comes in, you are going to benefit on the morning sun. In fact, in some climes where sunlight is the timing for sunlight is quite minimal, there is a space in the building called the solarium. It's a sunroom where you just design it such that it captures the sun enough for someone to be able to gain the morning sun. You remember that the morning sun is very good for the body. It is it's ultraviolet rays, but the evening sun is an infrared rays, and infrared rays is not very good for the body. Do you get the point? So that's why you need to consider this orientation very well. Another aspect is the ventilation, which I've mentioned. You cannot get airflow into the building sufficiently if your building is not in a very good orientation. Now, in the climate where I am, that's in Nigeria, we have the wind directions, which is the northeast and the southwest direction. The northeast direction brings about harmattan, and it's windy quite enough, while the southwest brings you sea breeze, and it drives into the rainy season. So now, if you position your effective spaces within this direction, normally what we advise when you are designing is that the longer side of the building should be positioned to gain this orientation, so that the wind can flow through the longer side. So wind can flow from the northeast to the southwest, and from the southwest to the northeast. That's how it flows all through the season. So if your building have a longer side and it is positioned like that, be rest assured that you have a good ventilation in the building. I know I did a building for someone sometime, and anytime I visit my clients, he keeps telling me, thank you so much for what you did for me. That in this house, he doesn't have need for light, as in light to see in the daytime, and he does not have need for air condition or fan, because the building is well lit and ventilated. And I was so happy because I took time to consider this orientation for his living room, for his guest room on the ground floor, and the kitchen. Yes, we provided an extractor hood such that once you're cooking, the air goes off. But the man told me that every space, once he enters there, is well lit. And there is no other testimonial that one can get from a client if your client is not happy with the space you designed for the clients to inhabit. So I had that client in mind while I was designing, because he was my user. I knew he was going to be using that space. So I took time to consider the things that he would need. Let me tell you another one that will shock you before I continue with the side context. My client, as at the time I designed the house for him, he was energetic. He said he wants his house at the top, and I told the client, no problem. But we will make your guest room to be very luxurious. He was like, what is there needed for the guest room? He doesn't want those rooms. Let's just make it a mate's room that you enter from the back. I said, no. Let us make it a guest room and make it integrated into the building, even though it's separated from every other room that has been taken upstairs. So at that point, I considered that, and I made that bedroom to be like a deluxe suite, provided a guest room and provided a convenience and a very nice closet. Some 10 years down the line, my client was hit with stroke, and what happened was that guest room became my client's room. And when I went to visit my clients told me, thank you so much for providing this space for me, because he doesn't know how his life would have been if... Welcome everyone that is on this channel. So just follow me up. Where you don't get, you can always get back and watch from the beginning. But for now, just follow up. So my clients thanked me so much, and he was lying on the sick bed and said, thank you for providing this space for me, because he couldn't climb up to the master bedroom again. And I was so happy that I was able to give my client that kind of space. And the guest room was so close to what we call, in fact, we had 2 living rooms. So the guest room was closer to the private living room, and the anteroom, if you enter the anteroom, you have the private living room at one end and the main lounge at the other end. And the guest room was just, you pass through the anteroom and you get to the guest room. So my client was so happy that he can come out from there and see his guests in the private living room. And it was just like he was still living in his house. So you see why I said that you need to have your user in mind. You understand the age of your user. You understand the lifestyle of your user. Okay, so we proceed with site context and orientation. I said the first one was sunlight and ventilation, which we have dealt with. Sunlight, you need the orientation of your building will allow you to capture the sunlight at different timings. If you are watching this video and you have not liked it, go ahead and like it now. Then the second also in that is the ventilation. You cannot be talking about ventilation without keeping your building well oriented. Okay, so when you have your spaces positioned well, you maximize natural light and airflow. This one will shock you. There are different kinds of soils, or let me not say soil, gradients in the soil. Gradients, that is topography, right? If you have a land that is slopy and you are building to such land, it wouldn't be very good for you to just level everything. You should build into the land. It means that you should understand how to adjust your layout to accommodate the slopes and the uneven terrain. That's very important when you are doing spatial analysis, because you need to take that topography into consideration. If your land is flat, fine, you have a freedom to do that. But if your land is not flat, you have to build into it to avoid future landslides that could affect the building. All right, the next one is considering your environment. When you are considering environment, it means that you're taking note of, one, adjoining land use, what is happening beside the building. Okay, what is happening beside your site will affect your site. Let me give you a typical example. If the site is located on a major road where vehicles are passing through, noise is one of those things that will be an effect. So in order for the building to be efficient enough for the person, in fact, not just noise pollution, You may also have pollution coming from emission of carbon from moving vehicles. So you see, your spatial analysis should help you position spaces that need more serenity away from that side. Okay, you may be having a bar by your by the left side of your site, or you have somebody who is running what do you call it, whatever that is noisy. You should be able to take your functions away from that side. In fact, this other one people normally don't consider. Your water supply for areas where you need to sink a borehole, and you don't consider your neighbor, the position of your neighbor's septic tank and soak away, you may end up taking drinking water from your neighbor's septic tank or soak away in the name of borehole. So it is important for you to consider your surrounding when you are positioning your spaces within the site. Okay, I move to the fourth, and the fourth of it is the space relationship and flow. You know, when you understand how spaces connect, it will help you to ensure or achieve, flexible movements through the building. Now, if I'm moving from kitchen, should I be taking the food from kitchen and pass through the bedroom? No, that should not be. So it means that I should actually understand that the food will come from the kitchen and move to the dining. And if that is how it moves, then these two spaces should be, the relationship should be stronger. In the previous video that I made, I think we talked about functional relationship. So go back and look up at the video where we talked about mastering architecture, mastering the design process. You will see how we talk about the relationship metrics. It's the same thing here. You need to be, for you to be a designer, you must be a critical thinker. And you see that the process, you do it and redo it, you do it and redo it. That is what is called iteration. And that iteration helps you to find where there are faults and you correct them. If you are getting the message clear from what I'm saying, do well to like this video and drop a comment yes that you're getting that. Okay, anytime you're watching it, if you're watching now or you're watching later, go ahead and drop a comment so that I will be, I will know that you are following me, and I can as well improve on the aspects where you need clarity. The essence of doing this video is not for me, it's actually for you. For the viewer of this video, it's for you, so that you can become skillful and better at what you're doing. So for space relationship and flow, number one, circulation pattern. How do we move from one place to the other? Are we having what do you call it, lobbies that will link spaces, or are you going to be moving from one space to the other? Number two is adjacency. How you strategically place related spaces near each other. If you're placing a space near, you have a living room and you have the anteroom, you know that you are going to pass from a living room to the anteroom. You understand? So, or rather, you're going to pass from the anteroom to the living room. So that's what is called adjacency. Then hierarchy of spaces. There are space that you progress from. Like you talk about the public areas, then you move to the semi-public, and you move to the private area. That is what is termed as hierarchy of spaces. Okay, you don't move from the private to the public. You actually move from public, semi-public to the private. Okay, that's good. So that now takes us to the fifth aspect of this video, which is proportion and scale. proportion and scale. A lot of people design without having this in mind. There's when you are doing design in the first instance, human scale is very, very important. Okay, human scale is you understanding the height of the person. It will influence your headroom. So let us look at the things you consider in proportion and scale. You need to pay clear attention to your dimension of spaces, and those dimensions, are they adding to the comfort and functionality of the space? If they are, then it should be what you should pay great attention to. If you've heard about the word ergonomics before, you should understand that when you're designing a space, you are designing a space that is going to help the user to function well. So you need to understand the relationship between the user and the furniture in that space, as well as the movement and the clearances that is required. So therefore, this takes us to what we call what will inform your room size is when you put the user in that space, you put the furniture in that space, and you put the dimension, the clearances that you require from one space to the other. I did this for you in the previous video, that's mastering this thing. Check out the last 2 live streams. You will get clarity on that. But it's very important, because you cannot be talking about a bedroom and the room cannot accommodate a bed. So it's very important that if you're talking about a bedroom, the bedroom should be able to, you should consider first, what is the size of the bed that will be put in this room? What else will be put in that room? Like, are you going to have a wardrobe? So if you put the bed, then you put the wardrobe, then what else will be there? You need space for someone to move around, and you need to be able to, navigate to your convenience within the space. It is very important. If not, you have spaces that are not for human. That also takes us to what you can also call a flexible space. In flexible spaces, you can have a space that functions as a bedroom now, and the next minute it functions as a living room. It could also function as an office. So what informs that is the flexibility of the furnishing, but you still need to consider the sizes of that and how they move for you to be able to adapt them. So what we call those such spaces are adaptable spaces. Okay, so if your room sizes, whether it's going to be a rigid one or it's going to be adaptable, whatever, you need to consider the sizes of the facility that will be used. Then the next one here is the ceiling height. Ceiling height. When you are providing spaces, you should consider vertical space for aesthetics and climatic purpose. When I say aesthetics and climatic purpose, if you are doing a residential building, yes, the headroom matters, and I'm just looking at my space here now. The headroom matters, So if you want to see my headroom, I think I can go ahead and show you my headroom. Check that out. Okay, so you see how high my headroom is. See how high my headroom is. Okay. So it's important for you to consider that. Then human scale, you need to design spaces, I said earlier, to accommodate the ergonomic of users. Let's move straight down to flexibility of spaces and how you can adapt such spaces as number 6. All right. When you are doing a modern building design, when you are doing a modern building residential design, you need to bear it in mind that spaces can be used for different function. I mentioned it earlier that you can have multifunctional spaces, like the guest room can actually double as a home office. Can you imagine that? Where you have as a guest room can be where you may double as a home office. Because if somebody comes to your house, the person is not coming, is a transit visit, is a transit person, you know. Every other person is not a guest, but the person who comes in and goes is transit. So that space that you may give the person to, you can design your office at home to be flexible, using flexible furniture that you can adapt it as a guest room, so that at night somebody can just sleep there, and in the morning the person is out of there and the space moves back to an office. And the user of that space might not know, because it's move your furniture around. Okay, another one is you should also bear in mind how to expand, how you can expand a space so that you can allow for adaptation or modification in future. Like you are living in a 2-bedroom today, and that building is your own. You should leave room for future expansion. That means your family size can grow, and that takes us to what we call phasing. It means that your building can be phased. You build phase 1, a living room and a bedroom and maybe a kitchen and a convenience, and where you have a patio attached at the other side will form your bedroom in future, and it turns to a 2-bed. That's how to build and allow for expandability. And in any project, it is always good to give room for expansion, because family size grows. Do you understand? Like, you may be building at an advanced age where you have children that are with you. In future, those children leave you. So what would you use all the other spaces to? You should be able to collapse some spaces, and it becomes more luxurious and grand, and it's still usable, rather than having tight spaces that are enclosed and are not usable. All right. Let's take this one. And this one will interest you. Remember, we talked at the beginning that we are considering the 3 major aspects, where you look at the functionality, efficiency, and the structure of the buildings. Here, aesthetics is a very key feature. If you have a space that is not beautiful, even the user will not love the space. So when doing spatial analysis, also you should integrate aesthetics and also think about the psychological effects on the user. When you have a beautiful space, the user is going to feel comfortable. Like where I'm staying now to do this video, I know how I feel in my mind. I feel relaxed, I feel calm. You see the way I'm talking now? Yes, it's informed by the color. If I had a black background, a black color around me, I wouldn't have loved it. So it gives you the visual appeal. It gives you an ambience, and you should also allow your spaces to connect with nature, because nowadays people talk about biophilic architecture, where you introduce nature into space. When you stay in a space and you're seeing green, it has a feel to the mind. If you like this video, go ahead and drop a comment that you like it. If you have not liked, go ahead and like the video. Thank you for doing that. And we move to the next one here, which is the key aspect, very, very key. How sustainable is that building, and how efficient is that building that you're going to design? So you don't build a house that the maintenance costs or the running costs will become higher than the building costs. It's actually important that you spend money to build a house and the house serves you thereafter. So you should have a house where you need minimal energy to run the building. Even the material that you're going to be using, what kind of material are you going to be using? Are you using material that when it spoils or when it deteriorates, you don't find it to replace? It's good to have materials that are readily available in your neighborhood so that you can easily find them to replace them. Then water is a very essential aspect. Some people design and they don't consider how they manage their water and how they manage their waste. So water and waste management is very fundamental. People just think that you dig a deep pit and you call it a sockaway pit. We've gone past that level. We've gone past that level. So you should go ahead and read up how the waste management system. It will help you when you are designing so that you know what to integrate. And this is what brings about a lot of the need for collaboration, because they are experts in various fields, people who specialize in sustainability and efficiency. Like for me, this one is a bomb. This one is a bomb. If you are listening to me, pay attention. For me, the aspect of cooling in a building is very, very important. And if you are ingenious about your cooling system, you can save so much cost, and the users of that space can be living in a very comfortable space without requiring alternative energy to cool their spaces. So it's a combination of natural and mechanical means to get your space well cooled. I'll do a lesson on that and how you can cool your spaces very soon. All right. One of the ways that we handle such cooling is you can use ground cooling to cool your space. So when you are doing your spatial analysis, you should also bear in mind, how do you want to cool the space? It's not just by opening windows. You can open windows and the air that is coming in at that time, if it is hot air, you will feel it hot. So you need to bring in cool air into the space. Right? Now, what are the tools that you use for and methods that you use for spatial analysis? Because all these things that we have been talking, we have been speaking big grammar for some people, but there are tools that you can use to do this. The tools that you can use, number one, is your bubble diagram. You see, when we tell you, go and do your bubble diagram, go and do your bubble diagram. You know why we say that? It will help you to do your spatial analysis well. In fact, another one is your relationship metrics. Relationship metrics. You know, there are some, if you are doing the advanced level of it, you can use 3D modeling software to do some, spatial analysis to check the relationship and the flow. Yes, technology has given that, but as manual as it could be, bubble diagram is the key. You understand? All right. Thank you for staying with me up to this time. And if you have any question, drop it in the comment section. I'm going to come back here later today for another live session. There, if I have your questions here, I will be able to address them before the next, or rather while I'm doing the next live session. Thank you so much. And for now, I say bye.